Hey, what's up, world? This our Fafore.
What's going on, good people? This is Oseun, and this is the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the time from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. What's going on, Fafore?
Hey, man, what's good? What's good?
Man, same old, man. I feel like we finna get a people a treat, man. We going back down memory lane.
I know, man. It feel like it's been a long time since it's just been me and you.
Yeah, man. We back to it. We back to it again, man. Just me and you.
Right. Hey, I'm gonna ask you a question, and let's just see if you flow with me. And I don't know why I do this or where this came up from or how this started. Oh, before we go, hey, check out our merchandise though.
Check that out, man.
Check that out. Check that out. Y'all got to go to the IG page, who.made.y'all.priest on IG, Linktree. Check us on out.
So y'all check us out, man. Y'all go
Absolutely.
support the podcast.
And we didn't coordinate this either. We just showed up, and it just so happened we both was rocking our new shirts.
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, so sometimes I just be sitting around, I'll be thinking about like stuff that we do, like it's normal in our society. And like just think about it, like that really don't make no sense. So that's crazy how like we really do that. And like nobody questions it. Like it's just normal. But one of the things that I was thinking about that if you really think about it, that's crazy, is the fact that we really go to restaurants and let strangers like behind closed doors, like make our food.
Right. You know what, man? I don't know if you and I have had that conversation before or if I've thought about it on my own before. But you know how Black people always say, man, I ain't gonna let just anybody cook my whatever the case may be.
Right. That's a lot.
Right. Then we'll go to 75 restaurants and eat whatever they cook. We don't know who back there, what he doing, what kind of hygiene he got. None of that, man.
None of that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Things become so commonplace that we just go with the flow, man, and accept things how they are. But when you sit down and think about it, that's a good question though. That's something to think about for real though.
Yeah, like that's crazy. And here's the thing, you got places like Waffle House that people love, but they'll crack jokes about it being dirty or it being this or it being that, or the type of people that you will see at Waffle House on the late night. But at least you can see them cooking your food. If nothing else, you can see them. So if somebody digging their nose and make your smothered covered hash browns, you could be like, hey.
Right.
Like,
you know what's crazy is I used to collect used cooking oil. I worked for a company.
I thought you were talking about personally, like what?
No, it was used. They converted it into biodiesel. So they they converted it. We used to put it in our trucks and all that type of stuff. So I was behind a lot of restaurants, man. And I used to say to myself sometimes, like, man, this is filthy back here, man. I think if people were able to see back here, see behind the kitchen, see the kitchen where all of this stuff is taking place at, man, I think those places will be empty. Or maybe not, maybe people are still willing to do things like that. But man, I used to say that, man. I'm like, man, this is filthy back here, man.
Yeah. A long time ago when I used to enjoy a good 3-piece chicken meal from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right.
I almost staged like a coup in that thing. So I'm in the KFC, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm probably like 2 people back, from order. And there's several people behind me. It's probably 5 people behind me. So it's a nice little amount of people. So the dude taking the order, like they short staff, is also the dude who going and boxing up the chicken and all that. Or maybe that's just how it is at KFC. I don't never go in. I usually do the drive-thru, but I don't know why I walked in this day. Probably because I'm hungry and I was just going to eat in. Maybe that's probably what it was. That was back in my day when I was an insurance salesman. Yeah, that's probably what it was. So I was probably gonna eat in. So I'm in line waiting for my food, and dude had a cut on his hand, and he was just like, he just shrugged it off, like, all right. And he go to grab the chicken. Now it ain't even my chicken, right? Because I ain't in line, I ain't in my order yet, and I'm like, I'm looking around like,
don't nobody see this?
Nobody see that, right? Like, yeah, everybody good? I said, all right, that's their thing. So I go up and put my order in. It's my turn. So dude turned around and said, hey, I'm gonna need you to wash your hands and put some gloves on. So dude just throw some gloves on. Mind you, blood is all now in like it's on his thumb, right? You can see the blood all through the glove. I said, dude, no, Oh, back up. First of all, when I said it, he was looking at me like I was asking for something crazy.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, you're not gonna wash your hands before you put the gloves on? Like, you ain't gonna get no Band-Aid or nothing like this? So people behind me was like, oh, hell no. People start saying stuff and people just start leaving. Like, man, hell no. Wow. Man, I was so hungry. I wanted that chicken so bad, but I was like, man, I can't even do it.
Hey, you still be low key wanting some chicken and some hamburgers and number ones and number threes, man. You be telling people to go taste that thing and report back.
Yeah, see, I know people, and to me this is disingenuous, but I know people who used to eat all kind of different stuff, and now whether they vegan or plant-based or just, on a healthier version of a standard American diet, like they'll talk about them places they used to smash, and I'm like, nah, McDonald's ain't never done nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
In many of my happy moments in life. Right, exactly. In many of my happiest moments in life, McDonald's was there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I always say this, if God gave me some advance notice, like, hey, I'm about to just shut this whole thing down. You know what I'm saying? I'm sending the flood, fire, whatever. I'm just going to tear it down and start over. I'm going to McDonald's like every day.
Right. You're going to go ahead and indulge, huh?
Absolutely. I mean,
but what kind of karma would that bring you in your next lifetime, though? You'll be a 14-5 next time.
Probably, but see, my thing is this: if God about to just shut this thing down, that next time gonna be a long time coming.
Right.
So
you willing to risk it? You willing to risk it?
I'm willing to risk it, for real.
Yeah, man. Hey man, so what we got going for today, man? It's just me and you. We back to the basics again. We back to our traditional selves with just me and you, man. What we got going on today?
Well, so we just came off of 3 powerful sessions, 3 powerful conversations.
Right.
With our Luo, with my homegirl, Elder Ebony Brock, and then
right.
Homegirl Haya with the Nation of Islam. And the conversation that we had with Ebony, like, we had some conversation about Dogma. And I think it's very important for us to really just have a conversation around Dogma in itself and what exactly it is, and, why is it something important for us to tackle as we all go down our independent spiritual journeys.
Right. And, as being good students and good priests, I immediately went to the Etymology dictionary to look up what does dogma mean, or what did it originally mean. And as I looked at the word in the Etymology dictionary, I think I kind of came to the conclusion that that's not really what we are talking about. I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think that that's what we're really talking about. When I looked it up in the dictionary, I thought about, remember the book that we talked about? I don't know if you got it. I know I have it, by Albert Pike, when we were in the lodge, the book Morals and Dogma.
No, I never got it.
Okay, the book Morals and Dogma. And it made me think about what that word meant after I looked it up in the etymology dictionary. So when I looked it up in the etymology dictionary, the etymology of the word dogma simply means a philosophical tenet or something that someone believes to be true.
Right.
And so I don't think that that's what we are combating in Ifa, in Christianity, in Islam, or whatever particular spiritual practice that you use to get back to source. I don't think that's it. What you think?
I agree with you. You know, again, like you said, that's the first place I went to. And then I like to go to the definition. And then the definition was basically, it threw in the element of an authority figure or an authority, and however they're defining authority, whether that is an individual, whether it's a king, president, pastor, a luo, or the authority being like a system.
Right.
You know, like we're here, we have this thing about people always want to ask about if it was in something was in a peer-reviewed journal and things of that nature. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it talks about an authority that sets these principles. But what I think about dogma is the first definition that I was ever given in dogma. And it goes back to my college religion class. And I used to always want to know if my professor was religious. And he would never talk about his own religious beliefs, if he had any at all.
Which is a good thing.
Right, which is a good thing. And you couldn't tell based upon how he presented things, right? It seemed to be straight academic. You know, he wasn't riding the fence or moving one way or another. He was just laying out the information. But he always defined it as something that you believe based upon tradition that you have not actually studied for yourself. And so when I think of dogma, I always think about his information or his definition, because that's what I see when I think of dogma, as far as how it plays out when I have conversations with different people.
Right. And I think that that's the definition that people lean on when they use the term dogma. They're talking about a group or a list of things that you have to do or that you are supposed to do or supposed to believe in to be a correct practitioner of whatever it is that you practice.
Right.
But I don't think, looking at the etymology of the word, I don't think that that's what we are really against. Like, you know, we talk about dogma and having to do things a certain way as killing the system. So I see in Christianity, for example, there are certain things that you must believe to be considered a Christian. You have to believe certain things to get to what they call the kingdom of God. To me, that's not dogma.
Right.
To me, that's orthodoxy. And I think that that's what we are against, orthodoxy. I think orthodoxy is what kills systems that won't allow them to innovate and grow and expand as Ifa did when Ifa left the shores of West Africa and came here. You have these many different iterations of Ifa. You have Lukumi, Candomblé, Quimbanda, and all of these different iterations of Ifa that were able to change, and there still is no orthodoxy. So I looked up the etymology of orthodoxy also, and orthodoxy basically means the right opinion. That this is the way that this is what you have to believe to be whatever, to be a Christian, to be a Muslim, to be whatever it is that you practice in. This is the orthodoxy. That's why we have the Orthodox Church. Like, we are doing it right. If you're not doing it like this, then you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And in our conversation with Haya, you know, we talked about, you know, orthodoxy and why the Nation of Islam wasn't considered Orthodox Islam. I'm okay with orthodox. I'm okay with somebody saying, I believe that God is a giraffe that lives in the jungle in the sky because this is what my particular belief system teaches.
Right.
I'm okay with that. Truth be told, there's a degree of if in case or if in fact that is what your spiritual system speaks on, and you say that, you know, I am a believer in this system, then that should be your thing. Now, the reason why I like my professors or my old professor definition, because that's more aligned to how I feel. If you have actually studied your system, you know, and when I say study, I don't necessarily just mean read the book or the literature that's associated with that system, because that's, to me, not how you do proper research. It's like if somebody gave me a dictionary, a Spanish dictionary, just the whole thing is in Spanish. That's not going to help me learn how to speak Spanish.
Right.
I can memorize that thing front and back, and I'm still not going to be able to say my name is, you know, how are you, any of that, because I don't even know what the book says.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who, well, I think very few people actually really study the literature for whatever their faith is. But if all you do is study that, then how do you actually understand? Because let's just take the Bible, for example. You got to understand the time period in order to understand a lot of what's being said in these different stories in the Bible. You're not going to get that information about the time period from reading the Bible.
Right.
You know, when you have those study Bibles and it has all that information at the bottom telling you and explaining different parts about what's going on and this, that, and other for the individual scriptures, they didn't get that from reading the Bible.
Right.
Like they got that from sources outside. So if all you're doing is reading the Bible, if you're at least doing that part, like you're still going to be confused.
Right.
So if you don't understand textual criticism, which is understanding how versions of the Bible were transcribed and how they were translated, because a lot of the times they would go find the most literate person out of a group of illiterate people, and that would be the person who would do the translation. So it's like, imagine for those who know first graders or second graders, right? At that reading level, would you want them transcribing and translating a document that you were going to live your life by?
Right.
I would.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then with that textual criticism, some of it came down to they would change words to what they thought sounded better. Like they'll write it out and they'll be like, I don't know, I don't really like how that sounds. I'm gonna change it up. Oh yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah. And you know, I've read many different translations of the Bible. I think of all of the sacred texts that I've been able to put my hands on, the Bible has been translated more times than anything. And we're not talking about translated into different languages. We're talking about reading in English, and you can read one translation and another and get a totally different picture from one to the next. I have the Septuagint down here. I really liked and started to become familiar with a translation that they call the House of Yahweh. Now, some people may say that's a cult or whatever you want to call it, but their translation was beautiful to me. And it would always link. Let's say you had the King James Version and you have a certain verse in the King James Version that the House of Yahweh version has changed. What it would do is it would link you back to Strong's Exhaustive Concordance and show you the Hebrew or Greek word or Aramaic word that this English word is translated from, and show you why we use this word instead of that one. So I became more familiar with that. But I think the definition that your professor gave has to do more with belief, just belief, belief based on tradition.
Absolutely.
And from an E5 perspective, there's this book that I think I told you to get, but you be tripping sometimes about, I tell you, hey, I got this book, man, you ought to check this out. And your first couple of questions is gonna be how many views it got and how much is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always gotta ask that. Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all, if y'all know Oseun or y'all run across him, if y'all got anything, he gonna support it. A book, if you make stickers, if you make parachutes, and he ain't about to jump off of nothing,
right?
He'll do it. He'll tell me about a book, like, man, I just bought this book. Word, haven't gotten it yet, hasn't read it yet. Oh, let me see. Like send me the link. He'll send it to me. 2 reviews on Amazon. I'm not buying that book. I'm sorry.
Hey, I got some good 2 review books, man, on my bookshelf.
See, I'll get it after you read it and you tell me it's good.
Right.
But I ain't read it. I'm not buying it because you like, hey man, this I read the description of it sound good. You should copy it. No, it got 2 reviews.
and you ain't spending more than $50 either. You ain't spending more than $50 on the book either.
Well, because of you, I do got a whole bunch of $100 books, but I always do it begrudgingly. I will say
right. That. Right. But I was telling you about the book. It's called The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful. And it's a study of the difference between knowledge and belief. And it talks about the way that the Yoruba view belief. Even in Ifa, I've come across some texts where Babalawos would be reluctant to say that they knew something if they hadn't seen it themselves, if they hadn't witnessed it themselves, if they hadn't experienced it themselves, if they hadn't proven it for themselves, they would say it's belief. And the way that they define belief is to hear and accept. So even the things that our owner Luo has taught us that we have yet to experience ourselves, according to the Yoruba, it would be belief. I think a lot of times what people call dogma, and we're going to use, for right now, for the sake of argument, we're going to use dogma in the way that your professor used it and in the way that we use it when we talk. A lot of the things that people call dogma is just things that people don't want to do. I think people are lazy and they'll say, you don't have to do that, or we don't have to do this. And my question is, who decides? Who decides what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done? And I think if we're going to allow the spiritual system to guide our existence, then that's what we need to use.
And to be clear, you're talking about the anti-dogmatic people, where they're always like, where you saying be lazy. They're the ones that'll be like, no, you ain't got to do that.
Right, you ain't got to do that.
Right, because they don't want to go through the 10 steps that have been laid out for you to take.
Right.
See, the way I view dogma, there is an aspect of ignorance in the dogma. I have a friend, and you know what's funny is about people who you know personally, right? Or at least in my experience. After I became a priest, I have friends that just got like super saved all of a sudden.
right? They super Christians.
Super Christian. Like I'll be talking to them and, oh no, the Lord and Jesus did that. And I'm like, I've known you for 20 years.
Right.
Like, when did this happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was talking to one of my friends because as in a group text or a group situation, I'm sharing information about my journey and things that I'm learning. I have one of the friends of the group. It's a group of 4 of us. All of a sudden now is a Bible thumper. And I'm like, for the life of me, I've never heard of you going to church or really talking about nothing. Like, you pray over your food, but other than that, I've never heard this conversation, right? But now, because I'm talking about this, now it's like you trying to get brownie points into heaven. So you're going to, I guess, I don't know, protect Jesus' honor or something like that. And I ain't even talking about Christianity. I'm talking about my spiritual system, right?
Right.
So I asked him a question one time, and I waited till it was just the two of us, right? Because I didn't want to, in a past version of myself, because I like to have you play rose cap, whatever you do, like. I'm gonna hit you with it, especially if you try to hit me with it. Oh, I'm gonna go in. So I ain't want it to be no thing like I was trying to do that. So I waited with just the two of us. So I was like, have you ever read the Bible? And it was like, nope. I said, okay. I said, who would you credit with, you being a Christian? Like, who taught you about Christianity? My mom. I said, okay, cool. I said, do you think or do you know whether or not she's read the Bible? He told me, I know for 100% fact, she's never read the Bible. I said, so your faith and trust and belief, not in God, but in this particular system, is all based upon someone who taught you, who had no idea what they were talking about, essentially.
Right.
Because they haven't read at a minimum, they haven't even read the Bible for themselves. Mm-hmm. That's what my professor was talking about as dogma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And passing it on as, this is just what we do.
Right.
Right.
That is my issue. My thing is, if I'm having a conversation in a group of people and somebody practices E5, right? And they going on and on about E5. And they the same way, like they haven't studied up on E5, read about it. I'm going to look at them not like, oh, yeah, cool, because you on my side. I'm still be looking like, you too need to read up on what you say that you stand on.
Right. Yeah. So I do understand the element of ignorance that's passing it down. That was one of the things that turned me off about the lodge was, many of our questions went unanswered under the guise of, you're not at this degree yet and you're not ready yet. And then our patience or lack thereof, because we still talked about it, but once we got to these certain levels and began to ask those same questions again, it was the knowledge was kind of lacking. Like, why do we do this? What is this about? What is this for? That's what turned me off about the lodge. And I understand the element of ignorance when you're talking about dogma in the way that we're using it now, not in this etymological sense, but in the way that we're using it right now. I understand the element of ignorance and how we just do things because it's tradition. We do things because our mother did it, our grandmothers did it. And I think that I think our mothers and grandmothers had an excuse. We don't. We live in the age of information. It's so much information out there. It's so much you could be doing come out of that ignorance that you don't have an excuse to still be celebrating something. Now, if you understand something, if you understand it and just say that this is what I want to do, hey, I'm cool with that. That's right. That's your thing. But when you don't understand it and you're trying to tell me that Christmas is about the birth of Jesus, then we're gonna have to kind of talk about that and figure out what it is that you know, what it is I know, what I don't know, what you don't know, and we need to figure this thing out.
Yeah, first of all, if you starting with it's the birth of Jesus, then that's an issue.
Right.
It's Saturnalia, you know what I'm saying? And I'll let people look that up or not. But you know what? What's funny is because I was going to mention the lodge as well, and the thing that broke my heart in the lodge, to where usually I only need an answer once, and I'm like, all right, I got you. It was so heartbreaking because I had such high expectations. I had to ask 2 or 3 times when our worshipful master at the time was saying, I don't get into esoterics. Masonry is just a fraternity. And I was like, wow. Like, we had to go back about 2 or 3 times just to like, maybe you were sleepy when you gave us that response the first time.
Right.
And I couldn't, like, I just couldn't, I just didn't understand it, because everything that I was reading that got me to the lodge, and I know similar for you, kept leading to Masonry. Right. All of these books and all of these documents, and when I say led me to Masonry, not saying it led me to Masonry because Masonry was the start of it all, or Masonry was, or Masons were the creator of this, that, and the other. But it was a place that I could go to get some more information.
Right.
And what I settled on, and we talked about this, is that my belief was true. It just didn't come in the way in which I expected it.
Right.
Like things that you come up in the rituals, right? I might not be able to go to somebody who can break down the esoterics, but I have enough information to then start going in the direction that I need to go into to start uncovering the information that I needed.
Right. Yeah, that hurt me too. And it hurt me even more to know that we were in a Prince Hall Lodge, and you have a lot of people that look down on Prince Hall Masons. I even know Black Masons who are not Prince Hall who look down on Prince Hall Masons. And I was thinking that we could have been the group to turn that around a little bit. Like, man, we need to get back to the esoterics. We need to get back to the sacred sciences, back to a study in symbolism and things like that. And man, to me, it seemed like simple questions were not getting answered. Like, hey, why did we move from east to west by way of south in the lodge? And just, man, it was just basic things. So they were just passing down knowledge in ignorance, just passing it to us, and we didn't even have to learn the ritual or anything like that, man. We was just there passing our toiletries and things like that. So it was yeah. So I had enough, man. I think you had a little bit more patience than me, and I was done, man. I was done. So yeah, I understand that now. That is, in the way that we're using dogma right now, that is, yes, it's complete dogma. This is what we're doing because this is how we were taught. This is what we were shown. We don't know anything about it. We haven't done any studying. We're just here, and we're just all about charity.
Right. And this is why I love Ebony and what she presented. We've had beautiful conversations, about religion and spirituality. And the thing that I love, right, especially with her, because of the fact that she's knowledgeable in what she says that, she stands on. Like, for me, there was never a, let me try to convince you to come to E5.
Right.
And for her, there was never an instance of, let me not talk to him about this because we are on something different, right? She was so knowledgeable about her space. It was, we can have conversations about religion and spirituality and things of that nature. And to me, that's a big, big sign of dogma, is when you can't even have the conversation. Because like I've said here before, I have a close friend of mine who I was asking about, the podcast, that they checked out the podcast, and really kind of like never really got a real answer or whatever. And then one day we were like talking, and it was like, man, I don't want to listen to that. You know, I listened to an episode of it, and you know, you hate God. And I'm like, now, an earlier version of me, out of ego, would have responded in a very arrogant way of, oh, let me show you what I know and what you don't know.
Right.
But I just sat there and listened, like, okay. And that's why this episode was so important, because it was like, man, two close friends, like as a priest, my priesthood is a big part of who I am.
Right.
Right. Now I don't walk around and every conversation be about it, but
not yet. Not till you get your cloak.
Right. Yeah. When I get that cloak, it's gonna be on.
Right.
But you know, that's if we gonna have some deep conversation, like you know, people talk about things that they're into. You know what I'm saying? And that'll come up, and with somebody who I view as a friend, I can't have that conversation because their dogma won't allow them to have the conversation.
Right.
And I didn't even respond to the whole I hate God thing, because I'm a real estate investor. And there's a thing that where if an offer for a property is super low, you don't even bother with a counter offer.
Right.
So as someone who is a priest, even if you don't know anything about the spiritual system, which they don't know anything about Ifa, for you to believe that as a priest of any spiritual tradition, I hate God, that's so far off that there's really no conversation to have.
Right. And many people, you can't have conversations about things like that. And I think that was a good thing about the lodge. One of the good things about the lodge is that we weren't supposed to talk about religion and politics, and because those are divisive things. And I find that I can only have those type of conversations with very few people. You know, I can talk to you about whatever, religion, politics, whatever. We can disagree, agree, whatever. We can talk, and then we back to doing whatever. But a lot of people, man, are so married to what they believe. They are really married to it. And I think that's when you die, for lack of a better word. You're not willing to expand, to grow. I can tell you right now, as a priest, that I'm not married to anything that I believe. I'm not married to anything. If you can show me, if you have better information, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. My beliefs, my thoughts, the way I move is malleable. It's all ready to be changed if you got something for me. But we need to be able to have a conversation about what we're talking about. And I think that a lot of us, we really have the same belief. Like you and I talk about all the time, Ifa, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, all of these things are the same thing. They're just different. They're different iterations of the same thing told through the lens of culture. And that's it. I don't see any different in the end goal of Ifa than in Christianity. True Christianity. I'm not talking about what we see like you told me one time, you're confusing the practice with the practitioner. What we see the practitioners do shouldn't take away from the essence of what this is supposed to be. So, yeah, you can't have that conversation with very many people.
Right. And one of the things that you were saying, it goes back to the definition, not the etymology, but the definition of the word dogma, which talks about beliefs that are held as incontrovertibly true.
Right.
And you and I both say the same thing. I'm not married to anything.
Right.
you know, sometimes when I talk to my mom, she'll be like, boy, what are you into now?
That's how my mama is too. What you into now? My brothers, they know what's up with me. They're like, what you into now?
Yeah, I got friends who done been with me for a long and they didn't see me roll through. Listen, I'm gonna go where the information takes me.
Right.
I'm gonna study it. I'm gonna try it out, put my hands on it, and if it works, it works. And it might only work for a year or two before I go on and move on to something else. But yeah, I'm not, like you said, I'm not married to any of these things. If I got a reading, you know, we're coming up on a new year, and our Luo does the yearly readings for the priest. If I go and the reading come down, and Baba say, in 5 years you're gonna be practicing Egyptian Buddhism,
right,
I'm gonna be like, man, that's crazy. I'll be like,
right.
I might be like, I wonder how I'm gonna get into that, but
right.
hey, I might. You know what I'm saying?
Anything's possible.
Anything possible. I'm gonna go where the information takes me. If I feel like the information helps me to improve, and I can help, you know, myself, my friends, my family, whatever, man, I'm going with it. Like,
right.
I love EFI. I think EFI is amazing. But one of the things I will say is there are a couple of things that are, I guess, missing, for lack of a better word, in the practice of EFI that does lead me to look into other places. Like, I love how yoga goes hand in hand with Buddhism, Hinduism. Mm. You know, a way of moving the body. And through moving the body, you know, the healing that comes with it. I love the fact that when you go and talk to Hindus and Buddhists, there's whether they do it or not, a lot of the people understand there's a diet that goes with this. Right. You know what I'm saying? We don't eat anything, as a Buddhist monk said to me, because there's a lot of temples in Texas. Mm-hmm. So I went to one. He said, we don't eat anything. We don't want anything to suffer. And it took me a minute, like, what the hell is suffer? And he kept on saying it. And then when he started saying what they don't eat, I said, oh, suffer. Gotcha. Right. You know what I'm saying? So they're all on a plant-based diet. Hindus, Buddhists, even like as we talked about it all the time, when Pythagoras went to Egypt to go get the information and he started his own mystery system, you had to be what they called vegetarian because there was no such thing as vegan. But vegetarian was, as far as a diet, would be plant-based. I mean, it's you know, obviously they didn't have processed foods, you know, back then, no microwaves and all that. But so I lean towards that. Like, I think that is the way humans should eat. Now, if that's, I don't got a problem with you know, EFI priest showing up to the situation with some Whataburger. Hey, that's your situation. You know what I'm saying? You got to deal with that, you know, one way or another. That's between you, your family, and your ancestors. Right.
You know, the Rosicrucians taught the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't push it. Like, they didn't tell you to become a vegan or a vegetarian. But in the literature, it was, like you say, we don't want anything to suffer. And they talked about it from a karmic position.
Right.
They talked about it like there will always be war amongst man, amongst humanity. There will always be killings amongst humanity as long as we continue to kill the animals that are lower than us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you know what you spoke about is one of the things that I evolved into, because there was, you know, back in my, you know, Black Power, you know, days, I was like, you know, Black people are not going to get the respect that they deserve or they should have as a people, and unless you go to war. Mm-hmm. Until I came across teachings that talk about you cannot defeat something with the same energy.
Right.
Right. So that whole fight fire with fire, you know, all you gonna end up with is a whole lot of burnt up stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you fight fire with water. So when I start going through those types of teachings and looking at things from that direction, and I'm like, yeah, that I feel that is true. And as you start what you were saying about the karmic, I start thinking about that, like, man, there is a karmic debt to me that would build up by the way we eat animals and things of that nature. Now I know people of the Christian faith says, well, God gave us dominion over all the animals, therefore we can eat them. I'm like, well, that's not what dominion means.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how dominion works. So now I don't even have to believe that or not believe that to understand the fact that, first of all, let's just attack it from the fact that that's not what dominion means. Again, dogma.
Right.
You know? But yeah, to me, there's a karmic debt that comes with that. So, but those are things that make me lean toward other places. I love yoga. I want to get into it more. I would love if the whole Elay was plant-based. So I know when we all getting together, we kicking it, I can get me some lentils and this, that, and the other, and I have to go bring my own food or whatever, but we're just not there yet. I do believe, though, eventually we will be there.
You think so?
To me, there's no way that you can be about the business of studying it and not evolve to that. You know, like, there's so much similarity between the traditions and the systems on Africa or in Africa, like, and all over Asia.
Right.
But yet then they have the diet aspect that they practice, right? And I'm sure the diet aspect is there. It's just maybe that part didn't make it across the ocean, to this part of the world. Just like there's something very similar to the chakra system. That's just not the information that we see available everywhere.
Right.
We hear Awo Falakun speak on that. And we hear Baba Shango Dari speak on that. But that's really all that I see. And as far as literature written in the book, Awo Falakun is the only person who I've seen write about that. Right. So, but I do think evolution will eventually take us in that direction. Again, it's all about not being dogmatic. Now, I get called dogmatic a lot.
Right.
Only in the instance of my diet.
Right.
You got to stop being dogmatic. You can eat this, you can eat that. And it used to frustrate me because I'm like, clearly we got different definitions of dogma. Because I feel like I'm the least dogmatic human being on the planet. Like, there's nothing about me today that was that way 10 years ago. Right. Like, I literally went through and studied everything. Like, let me just erase all my beliefs. Let me go from top to bottom and see what's what. Right. Now I got to this place from a place of study. Now, there are things that at times in that diet where I wouldn't eat, that I eat now, and things of that nature, right? Because it's like, okay, is broccoli gonna kill you? I hope not. Yeah, I know it ain't no Dr. Sabi list, but do I feel like it's gonna kill me? No, I don't think it's gonna kill me. Okay, cool. Cashews, I know that ain't on the list, but I don't think I'm gonna drop dead, off of cashews, Right. So, like, those type of things, I will. But I experiment. Like you were talking about, even in the Yoruba, what do we mean by belief or by knowing? Osho, Indian philosopher, spiritualist, he says doing is knowing. Right. So I'll have conversations with people about what they believe, about what I've done, and I always get confused.
Right. Yeah. So I think talking about that, I think we're going to have a beautiful conversation eventually with Dr. Boz. I've talked to Boz recently about a plant-based diet and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he really got some things to talk about, man. I think y'all gonna have a real good conversation to where I can ask some questions and kind of be in the middle and just listen to y'all kind of debate the literature and debate what y'all know. And I think our listeners and even myself are going to take away a lot from that conversation. But being that we're talking about dogma, what do you think are some of the detriments because of dogma to a spiritual system like ours?
I've had a beautiful experience, not just in the spiritual system, but over the past 10 years, that journey has been amazing because I have not been afraid to try any and everything. You know, in that time I've traveled around the world to different countries and see how they go about things and get information on, you know, what they do and why they do it. I've talked to so many different people. On that journey, I met you. I've unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've outgrown certain people. And but that experience has been amazing. And as a life past 7, I love information and knowledge. Like I love it, you know, and I don't discriminate except for the books with the 2 reviews.
Right.
Outside of that, I don't discriminate. Like I'm reading everything.
Right. Me too.
And I know you have a story about the Satanic Bible.
Right. I have the Satanic Bible, and I bought it not for any purpose outside of wanting to know what it said on the inside. And what I came to find was that it's not satanic at all. The guy, and we're talking about a specific type of Satanism. I'm sure they have different what I'll call is a lineage or a sect of Satanism. But we're talking about the guy Anton LaVey, what they call LaVeyanism as far as Satanism is concerned. And he says in the beginning of the book that they don't believe in the spirit realm at all. That the only reason that they use the term Satan is to go against the church. That's it. Now, many of the things, if I were to type them out and put them on the internet, most people would agree with the things inside of the Satanic Bible. But because it has the cover of the pinnacle and the head of Baphomet, you know, you don't want to see what's on the inside. Some people may consider me dogmatic because I need a process. I want to know I need to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And it's not because I think if I don't do these things that I'm going to go to E5 hell. It's just that that's how my mind works. My mind works in steps. My mind works in what's next. Even when I study, I used to tell people all the time that I don't know how to study. Because even when I study, the way I study is I have to put things in my mind in a certain way. Like you may be able to read a book, you may be able to read a chapter straight through, and you got it. I can't read like that. I don't read like that. Things have to go in my mind in a certain order, and if they're not, then I can't move forward. I have to. That's just how my mind works. So it may seem dogmatic. I may tell my wife, no, don't do that, or put this right here. I need this to be right there. And it may seem dogmatic, but it's not dogmatic. It's just how my mind works. I don't think that I'm finna go to hell. It's just, this is how I operate. This is how my mind works.
That sounds systematic.
Systematic. There you go.
But to kind of finish with your question, being dogmatic is very limiting. And again, and I'm not talking about what people call dogmatic. I'm talking about really what it is. Because again, I think people use the word dogmatic when they're talking certain people because they don't want to do what you do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Oh no, I don't want to go through those steps, so I'm just gonna say you dogmatic because you do it. You know, no, I don't want to read and study this, that, and the other, so I'm just gonna call you dogmatic because you come to a conclusion based upon, you know, study. But to me, truly dogmatic, limiting yourself to something because of tradition, and not allowing yourself to step out over here and over there to see things that are different from what you grew up with, or things are different than you were taught, and to really understand and study. To me, it's something to say that I've never stepped outside of this, but I know this is truth.
Right. 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 Yeah. And how do you do that? What do you compare it to? Even when I was considering myself a Christian, well, I wouldn't say in the beginning, but on my way out of Christianity, I came to the belief that truth, if it's absolute truth, if it's truth, it will stand. No matter what I go and do, no matter what I study, no matter what I find, if I step outside of what I'm saying is the truth will stand. It'll prevail. And like I say, going to prison for me was life-saving as far as spirituality is concerned, as far as study is concerned, as far as being willing to step outside of what I claim to believe is concerned. Without prison, there is no that. And without the people that I ran into that would push me and that would go against everything that I said. But what about this? And what about that? Have you read this? Have you read that? And, you know, those people push me to get outside of what I thought I believed. And I thank them for that. I think I found Ifa because of that. I think we had to go through those dogmatic systems, Christianity in my experience, Freemasonry in my experience. The Rosicrucians wasn't a dogmatic group at all. I just felt like they went above and beyond to get away from the blackness of Africa. And I wanted to find something that would be as esoteric as the Rosicrucian, that would be teaching the sacred sciences as the Rosicrucians did. But I wanted to be able to see myself in the system. And that's what E5 has provided. And then we got the best Luo in the world because he is not dogmatic at all. He will not tell you that you have to do this to be doing it right. Baba gives us a foundation and say, build from this foundation right here. And, you know, it's a lot of different people doing things different ways. And we pull from those people. You know, our Fabalasi, Baba Obatunde, our Luo, Baba Shangodare, we got all of these different people that we're looking at and saying, I'm going to take this aspect, I'm going to take this aspect, I'm going to put this together, and this is how I'm going to do my thing. This is what I feel like works for me. So I agree with you when you say being dogmatic is limiting. I think it kills the system because it doesn't allow it to grow. And I don't think that's what Ifa wanted to do. As soon as Ifa left the shores of West Africa, it had to begin to change at that moment. So there couldn't be any dogmatism in Ifa. It had to be willing to change. And it works in Cuba, it works in Florida, it works in Brazil, and it works for us under our Luo.
Right. And what I want to clarify here though is, because I understand how people who are listening may take the wrong thing out.
Right.
This and I hate that I even have to say this, but unfortunately we do. This isn't an anti-Christian conversation.
Right. Please don't think that.
If you watch the episode with Elder Ebony Brock, you will see that it's not an anti. What it is that we would be disingenuous if we talk from something other than our experience.
Right.
You know, I didn't grow up Muslim. I wasn't at any time Muslim. I did go to Jumu'ah service, you know, as a Christian, with one of my best friends, my brother Mike, and I thought it was beautiful. I thought the way that they clean themselves before they go in for service was dope.
Right.
Like I thought that was cool. You know what I'm saying? So no, we're not against anything, but we're only going to talk from our experience in Christianity was our experience.
Right.
Now, I say this to people all the time, to Christians all the time, and they be trying to, trip me up. But I say all the time that even as a priest of E5, that Jesus Christ is my personal Lord and Savior.
And you can't take it back. They say you can't take it back. They say once you confess with your mouth, you can't take it back.
Believe in your heart. But see, what happened is, so I'll say yeah to that. Yeah. Confess with my mouth, believe in my heart that he is Lord. Then it get to the whole that he died on the cross for our sins, and I'll be like, and I always just say something like, yeah, something like that. And they're like, no. But I really mean that, because without Jesus and reading that and understanding how I felt during that, then there is no Fafore.
Right. And for me too. And I didn't grow up at all Christian. Like I say, my mother had a Bible. I used to hear my mother pray, but my mother never pushed religion on us at all. So my first introduction to religion or spirit at all was in prison. And I kind of ran to the Bible being disingenuous in the beginning, and then eventually formed a love for study. And that was the first thing that I could actually put my hands on that would require a lot of time. I had a lot of time on my hands, and so I could sit down and actually study it. And it was beautiful for me from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely. I mean, again, just like Oseun, the same thing for me. I came into Christianity like myself, Again, I wasn't raised that way. It's something that I was interested in. I came myself and I was there. I did it for a while. I was a regular church goer as an adult and reading and the whole nine. And then one day I was like, I think I might want to pivot in another direction. But you'll never hear me disrespecting the Bible as trash as that. Like, I'll have people around me say stuff like that because they think because I'm not Christian, I'm on their side. And I'll be like, nah, I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe the
Bible is a beautiful document.
Absolutely.
And once you get outside of the Bible and start to study other things, then you realize how beautiful it really is and what it's really talking about and how it's the story of you. Once you understand that the Bible is the story of you, or that the story of Jesus is the story of you, then it becomes beautiful.
And that's where I am. Everything comes back to you.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you really understand what is being said, right? If you're not being dogmatic, if you are really looking to learn, unbiased, because I don't care what the answer is. Oseun does not care what the answer is. We just want to know the answer.
Right. Right.
I don't care whatsoever. I just want the info.
Right.
And how do I utilize that? But when you have people around you who can break down the esoterics of the Bible, then that's when I really start looking at the Bible like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they hitting hard. They dropping gems. So, so all of y'all Black Panthers and,
and they recruited me too, man. I told you they recruited me, man. They shot somebody at me to be a Black Panther.
Yeah, they after probably a conversation, they'll be like, no, this is what we're looking for our organization.
When I pull up there with a white woman, then they really gonna be tripping.
Yeah, they're gonna be like that. This is the dude who's gonna bring us down.
Right.
He's the ops. So, hey, you got anything else to add, Oseun, before we get on up out of here?
Nah, man, this was a beautiful conversation. I think it was a conversation that we needed to have about dogma. I think as usual, most of the time you and I can agree on most things. I think we got an episode or two coming up where we're gonna give the people what they really been wanting, and we're gonna kind of disagree a little bit. But yeah, man, this was a beautiful conversation, a needed conversation. And again, to reiterate your disclaimer, this is not a knock at Christianity, at Islam, or any other system. I respect all systems. We respect all systems, and we respect people that's doing what they doing, however they do it, man. Whatever works for you.
Absolutely. But some of y'all play too much. You know, like the Bible says, study and show thyself approved.
Right.
You know, are people prepared for the lack of knowledge?
Right.
You know what's funny with that? People stop at that, but Hosea 4:6, that ain't all it say. He talks about you rejecting knowledge and how God will reject you. So when you dogmatic, what you're doing is you rejecting knowledge, and in return, God is going to reject you. And all we trying to do is we trying to stop you from being rejected. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We
so whatever it is you study, and just study it.
That's it. That's it. Be about the business, like our Lord say, be about the business of what you stand on.
Right.
That's it. So we appreciate you for tuning in.
Make sure y'all get that merch.
Get that merch. Please share. Please subscribe.
Right.
Hit that like button.
Right. Turn them notifications on.
Hit that like button.
Right.
And subscribe. We love y'all. We'll see y'all next week, family. We love you. Remember, life's a journey. Don't forget the map. Peace.
Peace.